It's me, Doc, and welcome back to our first week, our first tune of the week. Once again, it's Cluck Old Hen that we're doing, and this is lesson 2, the boom chuck. So in the last lesson, we learned the basics of the song. We learned how to play the chords with an island strum, and then a basic boom chuck. We learned that rhythm, and we learned the melody, and we learned how to do a quick solo too, or we learned the building blocks to make a solo that should still be worked on. But in this lesson, we're going to dive more into what the boom chuck is and how to vary that up and make it a little bit more interesting than what I showed you last time, okay? Alright, so let's just dive into it. So last time, what you learned for boom chuck was you hit the low note or the low 2 notes on the 1, and then you hit the full chord, strum the full chord on the 2, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And that works great, but obviously we want to try and make it a little bit more interesting. So one option is, one thing you got to do is start refining your technique. Like I said, when we started, we could hit the low note or the low 2 notes, but now let's start working on making sure we're only hitting 1 note on that first down, okay? So make sure that when we play it, we're just going. Alright, and remember, if you're using one of the other techniques, so keep working on that. Make sure you can cleanly hit 1 note and then do the chuck. So 1 note boom and then chuck. Once you do that, we're going to start moving on to hitting something other than this note on that 1. Okay. The obvious choice is to mimic what the bass is doing, which primarily in this style of music, usually the bass is playing the root note and then the 5th. So that's what we're going to do too. We're going to play the root note and the 5th of each of these chords, okay? So you need to know a bit of theory to figure that out, and if you don't know that, well, that's fine too, because I'll just tell you, alright? So the root of the first chord, A major, is A. That's the note we were already hitting. And the 5th is E, which is this note right here. Right? 4th fret, 3rd string. So we could play it that way. But this note, as you know, is also this note. So we could just do it that way. So that's step 2, is hit the 1 and the 5. So with the other techniques, and if you can't tell, that's the open 2nd string. Now when you're doing a Pima style, you have 2 options. You can keep doing it. You can do thumb, chord, finger, chord, or you can drop your thumb down and play it. Which would be like the technically correct way in like classical guitar, classical ukulele style. But for what I'm teaching, I figure you can try it both ways and see what's more comfortable. Okay, let's get back to this. So with the 1, we got the 5. So 1, 5, 1, 5. That's the A chord. Now the G chord has its own 1 and its own 5. It doesn't have the same, so we have to switch those up. So G, 1 is this, easy. That's what we're already hitting. 5 of G is D, which is right here. So we're going right? So those are the 2 chords. So we've got got that? All right. So if you're struggling with that, or even if you're not struggling with that, a good exercise to work on this would be to take your pick or whatever style and just hit every note before the strum, every possible note. So low note, so fourth string, strum, third string, strum, second string, strum, first string, strum, and then go back down. Same with G. See if you can do it together. Right? So with the other styles. I suck at this method, just so you know. Hopefully you're better at it if that's what you're learning. Okay, so you got that. That's an exercise that you should be repeating. All this stuff is in the companion tab that I have in the playlist Tune of the Week Cluck Old Hen Supplemental. There's a link in the description, but it has the tabs for all of this stuff. It has some backing tracks, and obviously it has some recordings of the song that you should check out if you want to hear some cool ideas for it too, okay? Alright, so back to this. So make sure you're working on this, play it over the backing track, and just make sure you have that perfect before we move on to the next step, okay? Alright, so we hit the 1, then the 5, right? We got the 1, then the 5. Another chord tone we need to hit, okay? And that is going to be the third. So third of A is C sharp, or the major third of A is C sharp, which is right here already in our chord fingering, easy peasy. So we go. A third of G, the major third of G is gonna be B, which is right here, 4th fret, 4th string. So we can go like this. Alright, and the third is, not as common, but it's a perfectly valid choice. Right, so we've got the 1, we've got the 3, and we got the 5, and those are all choices for the downbeat, the 1 of our boom chuck, okay? So go back, practice that, make sure you can do all the variations of that, and once you can do that, we'll move on to the next step, okay? Which is this, walk-ups. We're going to learn some walk-ups. What's a walk-up? You probably already know what it is. You hear them all the time, especially in like country music and to start a song, So something like this. This is a walk-up. Or a walk-down. I mean, the terms are kind of interchangeable. But yeah, so we're going to learn a couple walk-ups and walk-downs to make our boom chuck a little bit more interesting, okay? So I'll do it real quick right here, and then I'll show you how it's done, okay? So. parts of the scale to fill in the space between the chords, okay? So let's learn how to do that first one right here. The first one, we're going to be using basically just the tones of the A major scale here, or A mixolydian scale, I should say. So it's so boom, chuck, and then you're going to take your pinky and go 4th fret, 4th string, back down here to the chord. This is the 2nd fret, 4th string, and you've already got that with your chord. So boom, da, ba, ba. And then you do a boom chuck on the G chord. Right? So we've got, and now we have to get back to the A. So we're gonna go boom, take your index finger, do 1st fret of the 3rd string, and take your pinky and go to the 4th fret of the 4th string, and then you're going to leave your index finger there for the chord, and then you're going to take your middle finger and put it back on the 2nd fret of the 4th string to complete the A major chord. So screwed that one up, sorry. So you can change the directions of those too. So before we went, we could change the directions of. It's a bug on me. Okay, sorry. We can change the directions of those. So instead of going ba 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 boo ba ba boo, we can go boo boo boo. Instead of down. 2 4 0 instead of 4 2 0. So instead of going, we're going. You do the same with the other lick. Got it? Easy, right? Alright, now, remember we talked about this before, but this is a song that's informed by blues tonality, and the chord progression and those walk-ups we were just doing are major. The melody is minor pentatonic. So we can use that minor pentatonic scale for our walk-ups too, even over the major chords, for the same reason we can use the melody. It just works, okay? So instead of doing da, 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 C sharp, B, A, you're going to do C, B, A. Instead of 1, 4, 2, you're going 0, 4, 2. So within the progression, it's. It's got a nice bluesy sound to it. You can go up to. Creates motion, makes everything more interesting. You don't have to do that all the time. You can do that sometimes whenever there's a break in the song, whenever there's a lull. So make sure you have those down, and then we'll move on to a couple different other options for walk-ups and walk-downs, and then you'll have to start making your own. Okay? Alright, so we just learned that one. Same lick in both major and minor, so let's do another one real quick. Here's. one is just A, boom, chick, and then you're going to do open, E string, second string, second fret, second string, and then the third fret, second string, and then while you do that, you're going to form your G major chord so you can do the boom chuck. Right? And then you're just going to walk back down. You notice I'm using all down strokes here. You don't have to. Normally when I play like a solo or something, I do a lot of alternate picking. But usually when I do this kind of stuff, I do a lot of downstrokes because I like the sound, I like the power you get, and the consistency and the drive. But you don't have to do that. You can go, oh, sorry. I just don't usually. Right, so if you're comfortable with all those walk-ups and walk-downs, we're going to take that concept a step further and do something what some people call the golden age lick. It's just basically playing those walk-ups even when you're not changing chords. It's called the golden age lick by some people because it's very, very common on older country recordings, specifically from like the late teens, the early 20s, and the 30s. There's a lot of these walk-ups specifically on guitar. If you go back and listen to those songs, you'll hear so many of them. So let me demonstrate it for you real quick. We learned the walk-ups, right? So this is what we're doing now. So, even on the chords we're not changing to another chord, we're still doing those walk-ups and walk-downs. Right? So if you're struggling, just practice that. Just practice them in isolation. Practice those on, and then start doing them. Right, and now, what's the next step? Obviously, to do them for the other walk-ups too. Now, see what I'm doing there? When we went from the G to the A, I played the lick this way. When I'm doing it again with the A, my fingers are occupied here, so I go like this. Same lick, same notes, same frets. Yeah, bugs. But I'm doing them with different fingers. So that's the golden age lick. So go back and practice all your walk-ups and walk-downs and turn them into golden age licks, okay? Make sure you can do them to the backing track. If you're feeling comfortable with the backing track, move on to the faster backing track. Remember, for this one, you're using the A Mixolydian backing track in either 120, 160, or 200 BPM that I have in the Tune of the Week Cluck Old Hen supplemental playlist. There's a link in the description, okay? Alright, so now that we've got walk-ups, walk-downs, golden age lick down, we've got the basic boom chuck, we'll just work on a couple other small techniques to build interest, okay? So yeah, what if you don't want to do those walk-ups? What if you don't want to do the boom chuck the whole time? So here's another option. Arpeggiating the chord on the 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and a simple arpeggio. So you're just going open, open, 1. You're just doing what you're already fretting with the chords. Right, makes sense. All right, so another thing you could do is hammer-ons and pull-offs, okay? And this will go into the concept of altering the harmony a little bit, not majorly, but just adding some extensions. So we talked about earlier in the other lesson, and it's in the chord tab, that you can play this A chord as an A7 or A7 if you want, right? So you can throw that in the basic boom chuck if you want. Also sort of play with the change between that regular A and A7 with some hammer-ons. So what if we play the boom chuck at first with this finger off and then hammer it on like this. Right? We do the same thing with the G chord. On the whole chord, like this. My old hen, she's a good old hen. She lays eggs for the railroad men. Sometimes one, sometimes two. That's enough for the whole dang crew. Or now we do the opposite, pull off. Another thing we can do is play this chord, and then with our pinky we do a little pull off right here, sort of like a banjo, like the equivalent of a banjo alternate string pull off. So, and we can do it at any point in the rhythm. So sometimes I like to do it on the end of the one. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 1 and 2 and 1. Sorry, 1 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 3. Instead of 1, 2, I'm just plucking this with my finger right here. You can use your pinky or you can use your ring finger. It's so boom, chuck. So I'm taking the boom chuck and making it boom a chuck. Boom a chuck. I can do the same thing with the same note on the G chord. Look at this. Try it. That's pretty cool, right? It's got a nice, like, sort of country bluesy sound. All right, another thing. We learned about hammer-on pull-offs to alter this chord. We can also do the same thing with the G. We did that, and we can also hammer on our pinky right here to the 3rd fret of the 1st string. And then pull it off too. Or we can pull off our index finger to make the open 1st string right here. Kind of like free-falling. Context, let me show you. 2 chord, or I guess you call it a G add 9 or no third or something like that. So what have we learned? We learned the boom chuck with the 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. We learned walk-ups and the Golden Age lick. Hammer on pull-offs. And we learned a few chord substitutions. We can do A7 for A, and we can do G sus4 for G. And we can probably even get away with G7 for G. My old hen is a good old hen. She lays eggs for her. It's not quite right, but it works. Alright, so that's lesson 2, the boom chuck. If you've got that down, you pretty much got everything you need to move on to rhythm on another song if you want. You just use the same basic principles that I taught you. But obviously, if you're still struggling, keep practicing. And we've got a lot more to learn in this series too. The next lesson is going to be on what we call chop chords, or sort of imitating the mandolin part of bluegrass and old-time songs on the ukulele. So we'll be doing that in the next one. That's going to be a little bit more challenging and requiring a little bit more finger dexterity. So if you're struggling with chords majorly, maybe go back to the chord tab, the pre-lesson chord tab, and just work on those 4-finger chords before you move on to the next lesson. But at the same time, who cares? Whatever. Thanks for watching, and remember, all the lessons are free, but if you want to hit my Venmo and give me a tip, it's in the description down below. All right, thanks.